Tracy's voice reverberated around the conference room as she declared, "Your access ends today. Your role is being absorbed by my new team." During the quarterly meeting, I sensed that everyone's attention was shifting toward me. Some faces displayed amazement, others sympathy, but the majority displayed perplexity, and an uneasy murmur spread around the room. I saw that I answered more steadily than I had anticipated, closed my laptop, gathered my papers, and stood up. I wished you all continued success without saying another word. I left my company badge on the reception desk as I left Whitman Company, the company my grandfather founded and which I had assisted in building for 18 years. My name is Mary Whitman, and at 42, I never thought I would be let go from my Whitman Company. Wasn't just a business to me, it was my legacy. Tracy pursued an MBA and worked with investors, but I stayed behind to learn every operational detail of our import and distribution business. I knew every vendor, understood every contract, and had personally trained the majority of our staff when our father retired. This was especially true of my own sister. I drove home in silence, replaying Tracy's triumphant expression as she announced my dismissal. Growing up, Tracy had always seen me as competition rather than an ally, and if I received praise for my hard work, she found a way to overshadow it with flash and glamour. Last year, the board decided to name Tracy as chairman, which hurt, but I understood the optics. Charm refused to give credit and wanted to completely erase my contributions. As I pulled into my Nashville driveway, my phone buzzed, and it was Thomas, our logistics director, Mary. Half the office was in shock over the political situation, and Thomas Tracy had been planning this for months. "What will you do now?" I smiled as I thought about the folder on my home office desk. "I have options." Tracy didn't know that I had anticipated this 6 months prior when she began to exclude me from strategic meetings and question decisions I had made for years. I saw the pattern and started getting ready in private, meeting with investors, obtaining legal advice, and even renting office space in a building for 15 minutes. It was my turn the next morning, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The first call came from Abigail, our client services director, at 7 a.m., and I just submitted my resignation. I told Whitman Company to call me tomorrow, so I ended the call today, and we'll talk soon. I walked inside feeling oddly light. Without introducing myself, I'm not employed by someone who acts in that manner, Abigail and Mary. I've seen you cultivate relationships with each of our clients, and you're the reason we chose Blue Ridge Trading when they were thinking about changing suppliers. You flew to Chicago when West Industries experienced that shipping catastrophe, and I sighed, recalling those restless nights when we took the precise necessary action. Now Tracy believes by noon, Thomas had called to announce his resignation as well, followed by our entire logistics team. The finance director, who had worked with my grandfather when the company was still operating out of a garage, dropped by my house with a bottle of whiskey and his letter of resignation. "She can simply replace you with that consultant who doesn't even know where our warehouse is located." He shook his head and said, 30 years, Mary," as we sat on my porch. "Your grandfather would be upset if he saw this." I poured us each a glass. He created something special. So did you. Did the company double its clientele under your operation strategy? He raised his glass to whatever came next. But I hadn't asked anyone to. I had actually taken care to keep my plans a secret from everyone at Whitman Company. But as the day went on, so did the texts and phone calls, and by the evening, I found out that over 20 employees had quit, including our whole operations team and half of client services. My father called at around 6:01 p.m. His voice, "I was fired yesterday, and I haven't offered anyone a job." After a long pause, I thought maybe I made a mistake. Stretched Mary, "What's going on at the company?" "Tracy says there's some kind of mass exodus." "I didn't organize this, Dad." I said, "Honestly, people make their own choices. You're poaching staff." After we hung up, I opened my laptop and looked over the business plan I had been working on. Whitman Solutions would concentrate on simplifying logistics for boutique wholesalers, which were the exact clients Tracy had been ignoring in favor of pursuing larger accounts. I had already obtained funding from 2 investors who shared my vision and had agreed to lease an office. 3 days after being fired, I signed my first client. Ironically, a former Whitman Company account that Tracy had judged too small to be profitable, and 2 more. By the end of the week, my home office was rapidly running out of space as last-minute meetings with old coworkers occupied my calendar. I just needed a team. Timeline. On Monday morning, I drove to the office space I had rented in a renovated factory building downtown. The spacious open floor plan had exposed brick walls, lots of natural light, and space for 30 workstations. As I stood in the middle of the empty room, envisioning what it might become, I heard a knock on the open door. Thomas stood. "We heard that you might be opening a shop there with Abigail and 5 other former Whitman employees." Thomas smiled and said, "I thought you could use some help." I hesitated. "I haven't officially offered anyone a position." Abigail replied, "But we've worked together for years, so we know what you're capable of building the weight of their trust." I couldn't let them down, but I warned them that Whitman Solutions is still only a business plan and some startup capital. Thomas laughed. "Mary, stop. You've been running a multi-million-dollar operation for years, and the only difference now is that your name will be on the front page." These people had walked away from stable jobs on the basis of loyalty, and I couldn't let them down. The energy in the room was electric, something I hadn't experienced at the family business in years. By the end of the day, we had set up desks, set up a temporary network, and created a workflow plan. At the end of the day, as the majority of the team was leaving for the day, I received a text from I showed the message to Thomas, who had stayed behind to assist with the network setup. And she was bluffing. He said, "What's the legal issue? You haven't violated any non-compete agreements. You haven't taken company property, and everyone left voluntarily." Tracy is upset because the warehouse manager informed me that they were unable to fulfill 3 orders yesterday because When I opened my laptop and showed him the spreadsheet I had been working on, which contained a list of Whitman Company's smaller accounts, all of which Tracy had classified as low priority, I explained that these clients had been neglected for years, and that they needed a partner who valued their business. He shook his head, but I agreed that it was our opportunity. Thomas looked over the list, and if we can convert exactly half of them, we already have 3 signed. I shut down my laptop, and Tracy kicked me out of the company, but she didn't. "Remember that the company isn't just a name or a building, but also relationships, knowledge, and trust." Thomas grinned. "And those who left with you got the cease and desist letter." I immediately forwarded it to Eleanor Banks, the lawyer I had hired months earlier when I first sensed trouble brewing, the next day, demanding that I immediately stop all efforts to appropriate Whitman Company clients and personnel. Eleanor told me, "This is harassment, not law," when she called me back. "You haven't violated any agreements. You're no." We respond firmly and factually. "I'll draft something today, but Mary, this isn't the last we'll hear from them." She was right that afternoon when my father showed up at our still-forming office. He looked at them. "Former colleagues left voluntarily, and the clients you've signed chose to end their relationships with Whitman Company before contracting with you, so we ignore it." He looked around at the busy activity and said, "This place looks promising. looking older than when I'd last seen him. "Can we talk privately?" I led him to the small conference room we'd set up that morning. "Tracy is enraged." He started, and when the door closed, she said, "You're intentionally attempting to ruin the company by launching my own company, which is a serious charge. Half of the operational staff left Mary, orders aren't being fulfilled, and clients are calling with complaints." I maintained a neutral expression. "But how is it my fault that I was fired in front of the entire company without any prior notice or explanation?" My father winced as he said, "I didn't know she planned to do it that way. But you knew she planned to do it." He turned away, confirming my suspicion that my own father had given his approval for my dismissal, and he said, "The board is considering legal action." Finally, he said, "They believe you orchestrated this mass departure." I leaned forward, asking, "Did you bring any proof of that? Emails in which I asked for employees? Or recordings of me telling them to leave because no one trusts you, Mary? They follow your example. I haven't asked anyone to follow me anywhere. They made their own decisions after witnessing Tracy's methods." My father sighed deeply. "She's young, and will understand the price the business grandfather paid to establish the connections I've had for 18 years. Since the cease and desist letter indicates otherwise, I stood up to my father and gave everything to Whitman and Company nights and weekends. He said, 'Perhaps you could return as a consultant and help rebuild the operational structure.' I almost laughed. So Tracy can fire me again once everything is fixed. I gained the respect of our employees and clients through years of resolving issues and honoring commitments. Tracy believed she could undo all of that with a single statement, but she was mistaken. My father appeared defeated. "What do you want? Money or a public apology? I don't want to start my own business with people who value honesty and hard work more than titles and politics." We just received another call from Riverview Imports, who said they wanted to set up a meeting. Riverview was one of Whitman's biggest accounts, one that I had personally secured 5 years prior. I apologize that it's not with Whitman Company anymore, but that wasn't my choice. After he left, I found Abigail waiting outside the conference room. "Everything was fine. Family business," I said with a wry smile. "Complicated as usual." "Set it up for tomorrow," I said, trying to speak quietly. "And Abigail, let's make sure we're ready to handle an account of that size." She smiled. "We already are." The Riverview meeting surpassed all of my expectations. Their purchasing director, Gregory Pearson, had worked with me for years and didn't hold back, he explained as we sat in our conference room. "We tried to make it work with Whitman after you left, but 3 shipments were delayed, documentation was missing, and to be honest, nobody could answer our questions." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said tactfully. "Don't be. Their loss is potentially your gain." He slid a folder. "This is what we need, and Whitman Solutions can handle it." I opened the folder and looked over their requirements, which were significant. Nearly twice as much as any client we had signed thus far. But I was able to confirm after giving it some thought that we have the systems and the experience. We're still expanding our warehouse capacity, but we can handle this. After Gregory left, I gathered the team to share the news, and the celebration was just getting started when my phone rang. "Volume is good. I've been approved to sign a 6-month trial contract with the option to extend to 3 years if all goes well." As we worked through the details, I felt a wave of validation that this wasn't just any client, but evidence that what we were building had real value. Eleanor Mary called and asked if you were sitting down. She wanted to know what had happened. Whitman Company had filed for a temporary restraining order against you and Whitman Solutions, claiming that you had stolen trade secrets, interfered with business relationships, and made a number of other colorful accusations that made my stomach drop. I felt the blood drain from my face when they submitted a declaration from Tracy stating that she had proof that you had accessed restricted files in the weeks prior to your termination through proprietary logistics systems before you left. I never knew. But they persuaded a judge to grant a temporary hearing, and we must prepare a response right away. I hung up the phone and discovered everyone was staring at me, and their joyous atmosphere vanished when Thomas asked, "What is it?" I calmly explained that this was a delay tactic, and I came to the conclusion that they were attempting to harm our reputation with prospective customers and slow our progress. Could they accomplish that? One of the younger team members asked anxiously. They can try, and Thomas responded before I could. But Mary is in charge of the Eleanor will handle the legal response, so we need to concentrate on what we can control, serving our clients and growing this business. The team scattered, but Thomas stayed, saying quietly, "What is it that I've been hearing from friends still at Whitman Tracy's? It's the cleanest operation I've ever seen, and there is no proof because there was no wrongdoing. Brought in management, consultants, who are interviewing the remaining employees to find out how information was shared and who had access to what I scowled at. The intriguing thing is that the board isn't in agreement about this strategy. 2 members have voiced concerns that the litigation will cause more harm than good. I told Thomas that if her husband was questioning Tracy's strategy, it could be a sign of a changing dynamic. However, we proceeded as planned, with nothing to hide and everything to build. That night I couldn't sleep, and the irony that Tracy had been fired wasn't lost on me. Accounting. Her husband plays golf with Harold Peters. Harold was one of my father's oldest friends and a founding board member. The hearing was set for the following week, giving us very little time to prepare. Eleanor worked tirelessly to gather affidavits from team members confirming they had left Whitman Company voluntarily. I provided detailed records of my final hearing. She had used legal tactics to stop my success after facing a collapsing company. Eleanor assured me that their case was weak after weeks of employment, but perception is almost as important as facts. We must appear completely professional and above reproach. On the morning of the hearing, I carefully dressed in a conservative navy suit and pulled my hair back into a simple style that communicated competence rather than. After that, my phone called as I was driving downtown to the courthouse. The caller ID displayed Dad, so I paused before responding. "Hello, Mary. I tried to stop this," he began in a strained voice. "The lawsuit. I warned Tracy and the board that it would only make matters worse, but they ignored me. Tracy has persuaded the majority of them that you had this planned from the start. You purposefully destroyed the company, and I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. What do you think?" A long silence ensued. I think I erred in supporting Tracy for chairman because, although I was impressed by her qualifications and connections, I forgot what actually makes a business successful. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt tears well up in the corners of my eyes. "Why are you telling me this? I've filed an affidavit stating that I have no knowledge of any wrongdoing on your part, and that in my 40 years of business experience, I've never seen you act with anything but the highest integrity." I pulled into the courthouse parking lot and took a deep breath. "Because I'm going to testify today as a witness for your side." Tracy will view this as the final betrayal, perhaps. But the ultimate betrayal was mine, when I failed to defend you in the first place. In the courtroom, I saw Tracy for the first time since she had fired me. She sat rigidly next to her attorneys, her expression coldly confident. When our eyes met, she didn't flinch or turn away. I nodded slightly and sat down next to Eleanor. The proceedings proceeded swiftly. With Whitman, and when it was our turn, Eleanor methodically dismantled the company's attorney's case, presenting testimony from the resigned IT director, confirming that the files in question were ones I regularly used in my role and presenting printouts of files they claimed I had inappropriately accessed. The attorneys had claimed I had systematically undermined the company and stolen proprietary information. She provided client statements indicating that they had independently contacted Whitman Solutions following service issues, and then the turning point arrived. My father was called to testify, and he appeared to be the distinguished businessman he had always been. But his voice carried an emotion I rarely heard from him: regret. My daughter Mary has been Whitman & Company's operational backbone for 18 years, he said unequivocally. Her removal was abrupt and without proper transition, a decision I regrettably supported at the time. Any subsequent issues the company has faced are the result of that poor management decision, not any misconduct on Mary's part. The judge paid close attention. The court finds insufficient evidence to support the claims against Mary Whitman and Whitman Solutions, and the request for a temporary restraining order is denied. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, alerted to the family drama unfolding in the business community as he made his decision, occasionally glancing at Tracy, whose face had turned pale after all testimony concluded. The battle was won, but it was far from over. The legal victory gave Whitman Solutions unexpected momentum within days, as 3 more former Whitman & Company clients contacted the Nashville Business Journal to schedule meetings, and I stood next to my father and Eleanor in a dignified silence, while Tracy pushed through the crowd to her waiting car. Drama. And although I had refrained from directly commenting, the article presented a positive image of our new business. However, what really caught me off guard was the effect on Tracy, who, according to Thomas's sources, had received a reprimand from the board after the unsuccessful legal action. The costs of the litigation and the bad press had only made Whitman and the company's operational issues worse a month after the hearing. The board held an emergency meeting yesterday, and after we ordered Tracy to be placed on probation, they appointed a co-chairman to oversee operations, while she focused on client retention. I took in this information. My father invited me to dinner, and we met at a quiet restaurant away from the business district. He appeared more at ease than I had seen him in years. Carefully, who is co-chairman Harold Peters? He was the most outspoken opponent of the lawsuit against you. How does Tracy feel about this arrangement? My father grinned a little bit, and she argued against it, as you might expect, but the quarterly numbers made it impossible to ignore. Revenue is down 28%. I took a sip of water in light of the board has also given me permission to approach you regarding a possible collaboration. What kind of collaboration would not jeopardize Whitman Solutions? Only a limited partnership for specific large-scale projects that would benefit from it. I'm not celebrating their struggles, Dad, and I know you're not. That's the difference between you and Tracy. The proposal was unexpected, but part of me wanted nothing more to do with Whitman & Company. However, another part of me saw the practical benefits of such an arrangement. So I said, I'll consider it, but I'll need to talk to my team first. They left because they thought that doing business in a different way was fair enough, and my father agreed. During our strategy meeting, Abigail argued that We left because of how Whitman operates, meaning that if we partner with them, aren't we tacitly endorsing those practices? They put their trust in you. Don't betray that. The partnership proposal sparked intense debate among our leadership team. Some saw it as a smart business move and a vindication, while others were concerned it would undermine everything we had built. Thomas retorted, "Not necessarily," saying that by establishing the conditions, we might be able to persuade them to enhance their business practices. I paid close attention to all points of view, valuing the enthusiasm and values that motivated each team member. Following 3 hours of deliberation, we decided on a set of guidelines that would allow us to examine the after reading the document. My father noted that these are strong terms, but they are reasonable, considering that Whitman Solutions would remain fully independent. The partnership would be project-based. Only our team would have full operational control over any joint ventures, and Tracy would not have direct authority over our staff. The headline, "Whitman Family Reconciles in Groundbreaking Partnership," appeared on the front page of the business section, accompanied by a picture of my father and me shaking hands in front of the board. I responded, "We've built something special here, and we won't compromise that." A week later, the board unanimously approved our terms with one abstention. As I was reviewing the finalized agreement at the Whitman Solutions office, a notification from Tracy appeared on my computer. I was hesitant to open it, expecting to be angry or accused. But instead I discovered something surprising. "Mary, the board has made their decision, and I will comply professionally. You have won this round through means that I still question, but I know when our receptionist buzzed to announce that Riverview's representatives had arrived for our contract renewal meeting, I grinned and realized that Tracy was correct about one thing. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. I forwarded the email to Eleanor with a brief note for the record. Then I returned my focus to leading my company and the work that had always mattered most. I thought about how things had gone differently than I had anticipated as I entered the conference room. I hadn't sought retribution. Instead, I had just improved things. And in doing so, I had accomplished the most. Gratifying triumph of everyone looking back on the path from dismissed executive to successful creator. I came to understand that the finest retaliation isn't always about destroying what caused you pain, but constructing anything they are unable to overlook.